You asked the dawn to carry a whisper of my name, and I believed the sun would pause to learn it. Our eyes collided above the marketplace hum, and even the dust seemed to bow to our first breath. The air held a perfume of new beginnings, and your smile struck like lightning in quiet corridors. I traced the curve of your laughter in secret, writing it down on pages that feared discovery. We walked among strangers, yet they became shadows, for your presence drew the light toward us. Each word you offered was a seed, and I planted them in my chest like fragile flowers. I learned the language of your hands slowly, mapping each gesture as if it were a constellation. You spoke in syllables of gold and dusk, and the world around us shimmered in apology. The city's pulse was our metronome, and the wind carried our names like a prayer. Every glance was a covenant, every brush of shoulder a secret accord. Beneath the orange rooftops, I saw you pause at a fountain and dream aloud. The pigeons circled as if in homage, and the cobblestones remembered our footsteps. You laughed at the mundane, a street vendor's cracked cart, a child's kite in rebellion, and I felt the weight of eternity settling softly between our shoulders. The first night came without permission, and we traced the skyline with our shadows, drawing invisible bridges between rooftops, and wondering if dawn would forgive our daring. A melody floated from an unseen oud, and we hummed along, not realizing the tune was old. I memorized every hesitation of your lips, every pause between heartbeats, every tremor of air. Your eyes caught mine across the crowded plaza, and for a heartbeat we existed alone. The bells of the mosque echoed like affirmation, and I wondered if the world would always notice us. The first 100 lines are a quiet awakening. The meeting, the spark, the fragile thread that binds. We know not yet the storms that will follow, but the memory of light here will not vanish. The morning light found us in a quiet courtyard, your hand brushing mine, speaking in gestures too subtle for words. We shared laughter that rippled like sunlight across water, but beneath it lingered the first taste of tension, a reminder that the world outside would never be still. Our days became a pattern of stolen moments, between ceremonies, parades, and public smiles. Every eye was a compass, every camera a measuring tape of our devotion. Even in joy, we learned the weight of performance. I watched you bow to expectations I could not see, your heart folding under invisible hands of duty. We whispered in corners, our secrets sharp as thorns in velvet. The city thrummed around us, indifferent, while we built castles from moments too fleeting to last. Evenings arrived, wrapped in gilded lanterns, and we walked the streets as if alone. But the echoes of applause haunted our steps, and friends became watchers, offering advice that cut deeper than words. You laughed at a joke I did not make, and I wondered if your heart was drifting toward the world's applause. The wind carried fragments of our conversations, and I pieced them together like broken glass, finding shards of love among shadows of duty. We dined beneath chandeliers that mocked intimacy, our glances meeting in stolen seconds. The air smelled of incense and ambition, and I realized love here was a fragile currency. Every gesture was observed, every smile catalogued. Your touch became a message, a signal that we were still ours despite eyes that intruded. Yet, the burden of the public began to etch lines into the corners of our moments. The laughter we shared felt borrowed from a world that did not understand quiet love. I traced your silhouette in candlelight, imagining a place without expectation, but duty followed like a shadow, long and unyielding, pressing us into shapes we did not choose. You gave me roses in a courtyard of strangers, and I felt the paradox of intimacy and performance. The world applauded your kindness, while I counted the seconds, until our hands could meet again in unobserved silence. Between the ceremonies and the whispers, I began to sense the first rifts forming, small fissures in our marble of happiness. The city loved your light. I feared it would consume us both. Even amidst smiles, the heart is aware that duty is relentless and love fragile. We learned to speak in code, in glances, in pauses, in letters that never left the drawer. And still I believed in us, in the quiet rebellion of our hearts against the world. The letters grew shorter, the pauses between our calls longer, and I began to hear the whispers that curled around your name like smoke. A glance that once promised eternity now flickered with hesitation. I traced the lines of your face in quiet rooms, searching for the warmth I feared was fading. The world pressed closer, with eyes and questions and advice. I learned that love in public is measured in gestures, not in hearts, and each gesture had a cost I could not afford. Small rifts appeared like cracks in a mirror, barely noticeable at first, but catching the light in ways that made them undeniable. A joke misinterpreted, a word lost in translation, and suddenly the laughter we shared felt like a language we no longer spoke. You smiled at strangers, and I felt the shadow of what I could not touch. The wind carried rumors, and I felt them like knives, sliding beneath my ribs. Even the moon seemed divided between us, illuminating your shadow in ways it refused to illuminate mine. I watched you bow to duties and obligations, and I learned to hide my longing in the folds of crowded rooms. We argued in silence, each of us retreating behind polite smiles. The city celebrated your presence, while my heart kept a tally of small absences and missed moments. I wrote letters I never sent, folding my sorrow into careful origami. I memorized the scent of your hair, the cadence of your laughter, the subtle inflection in your good morning. Even in intimacy, distance grew, measured in pauses, in hands that hesitated, in words that remained unspoken. The rifts became rivers, small at first, trickling under the bridge of our affection. Yet I feared the flood that could one day wash us apart, and still I clung to fragments, to a glance, a smile, a memory of laughter in unobserved corners. Rumors whispered through the corridors and found their way to our hearts. We fought battles in silence, each of us wounded, each of us afraid to show the bruise. The warmth of the orchard we once imagined felt like a dream already slipping away. I traced your steps in empty streets, and the echo of your laughter became both solace and sorrow. In these 100 lines, love begins to falter under pressure, and the shadows of expectation begin their quiet, persistent work.